All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The agenda is approved. Well, now we'll into the board reports. Each of the board members is Kirby Anderson's board reports.
Okay, I have another. The 544 Education Foundation. I am a non-voting member of that board, and we meet going on. We did complete a number of items in the last month or so associated with the 544 Education Foundation. It's a great. You'll hear some of the things that we do, and it's a great organization. We did serve just under 600 meals of taco in a bag on Otter Pride Night. We had a retired staff reunion on Thursday, September 30th at the YMCA, which went very well. We also had a Distinguished Alumni and Hall of Fame event just this last weekend, October 8th and 9th, where we inducted Tom Hinchin and Jenny Westrup, Maiden and Hillslip, into the Hall of Fame. Some of the things that happened last year, we didn't just have the annual meeting for the 544 Foundation. So just a quick recap. In the 2020-21 school year, we gave out almost $34,000 in grants. A lot of those went to teachers for requests that they had for things that they needed that weren't budgeted or paid for by the school district. We also awarded $10,000 in scholarships to about 7 different graduating seniors. Donations come in. We had 421 members. 36 of those are considered major members. We had 132 memorials. So we did have some cancellations because of COVID. Some of the things that didn't happen. The retired staff did not happen last year. We missed out on the golf tournament last year. The in-service lunch, which we usually do, we did not do last year. And we didn't do the Hall of Fame or Otter Pride Night last year, which we did just this last month. We also had welcomed in a couple of new board members, and we do have an outgoing president, and that was Nick Mariotti, and we have an incoming president. And Kelsey, are you here? Kelsey Nakadashali, you want to stand up this way? She's here somewhere. Anyway, she's our incoming president, so thank you to her and to all the other board members for their service. And unless some of the board members have any questions, I think that concludes my report.
Any questions for Kirby? All right, thank you, Kirby. Going alphabetically, my board reports include the Special Education Cooperative. We met today, and the director of the Special Education Cooperative indicated that there is special ed compliance and fiscal monitoring systems that are changing. Lately, the time and effort's been a focus. The district to oversight committees of the state and federal government, the time allotments for each of the para staff, and so that can be accounted for, and that's a basis for some of our funding. She also gave indication, our auditors were here, completed their annual audit, and that went well. Many of the staff have been training, and with COVID and all the additional responsibilities, there's a variety of training options available, some after school, but for those who have complicated situations, it is also recorded and can be done at another time. And then one thing that's been a significant issue or burden for the Special Education Cooperative is COVID catch-up planning. So for each of the special ed students, there needs to be an offer to the parents to redo their individualized education program, or IEP, before the end of the year. If a parent accepts that, then the plan must be reviewed, and if the parent believes there is a need for COVID catch-up that has not been addressed yet, then the planning goes into that as well. So that was the primary focus. We also did some agenda, or some personnel items on the agenda, and we are going to distribute performance evaluation for the director to the involved staff. And then Region 1 is another school board out of Moorhead. It provides computer and database services for the west side of the state. It is its own school district, and it, for example, provides us with our student database Synergy. They do the troubleshooting, programming updates, et cetera, et cetera. We met with that board at the end of last month and reviewed reviewed the audit for there, and just did personnel stuff, just very routine. Activities committee will be meeting soon. We're revamping the co-curricular schedule. Well, actually, the athletic director and some administration and some of the teaching or coaching staff are doing that, and it will come to our committee for review. And then lastly, not on my list, but often I report on negotiations, and we have begun negotiations with the certified staff. We've had several meetings. It's going nicely. We've been quite progressive, and we will be meeting again probably in the next month, date to be set. So to the board members, any questions on my board reports? All right, thank you. And we'll continue on with Missy Hermes.
Okay, the policy committee has not met since our last school board meeting, but the staff development committee has. And we met on October 4th, and that is a committee where the staff can decide on different trainings and so on. And so that, we talked about our budget for this year, which has been a carryover because of COVID, and what are some plans that we're going to make to provide training. Some of the top training needs that staff have talked about are mental health of students and staff, technology, and social emotional learning. And so most of the discussion was what would be the staff development days, what would be happening. There's one in January and one in March. And it looks like we're going to have some of the administrators plan some of that training so that we can put into place those ISTE standards and also the project-based learning to help give educators that are planning those different projects and that changes to their curriculum. We'll be putting that into place.
Very well. Anything else for a board report? Any questions for Missy? Thank you, Missy. Natalie Knudsen.
All right, Buildings and Grounds has not formally met, but we have a variety of projects in place right now. And we, at our last board meeting, went through an evaluation process in our work session that kind of looked at all of our facilities that we currently have and kind of broke things down on what kind of repairs might need to be made, and just a really nice detailed report that we will be coming back as a board to discuss. And then the Wellness Committee had their first meeting of the school year. Lots of great things continuing to transpire with food service. There have been some issues with getting some of the products that they have been wanting to serve, and so kind of thinking on the fly sometimes. And one of the questions from a staff member at the meeting was figuring out a process to get some of the healthier items to the staff at the other school buildings, such as some of the take-and-go salads and some of those healthier options. And then as part of the strategic planning and the staff climate and culture subgroup, the district has decided to start incorporating some of the Thrive initiative. And so just a reminder, Thrive is health and well-being through happiness and purpose. So there's a variety of different components that all entails, but in September, the staff went through some different activities related to social connections, and now this month they're diving into values. And so the whole point is the staff is going to be practicing all of the values and components the first half of the school year, kind of learn how it feels to be going through the process, and then they'll be taking those components and teaching them back to the students the second half of the year. So it's a good effort to keep the climate and culture on a positive note and try to keep those kids just working through mental health, I guess you'd say.
Very well. Any questions for Natalie? Stephen Biggesham.
Good evening. My reports are pretty easy tonight. The legislature is not in session. Nothing to report there. The Meet and Confer Committee, which is a committee that is staff reports and there to work through particularly sticky issues, but also just the biggest thing we do is the calendar every year. But we have not met or conferred for quite some time. And curriculum review will be getting started next Tuesday, so I'll have a report next month on that.
All right. Any questions for Stephen? And we'll have a board report from our superintendent, Jeff Drake.
Good evening, and thank you for everyone for coming out for tonight's meeting. Before I get going, I just want to start out with a short personal anecdote. Before the meeting, I was out in the parking lot, and on my way back into the school building, there was a young lady that was sitting on the sidewalk right next to the door, and she said, "Mr. Drake?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Good luck." And I will tell you, it's moments like that that make me honored to be serving this community and this profession, even on the hard days. It was mentioned earlier that the 544 Foundation and the school district had done a Hall of Fame on Saturday. I do want to extend my personal congratulations to Tom, Jenny, and Jason, three outstanding honor alumni that have continue to represent the school with great pride, talk about the great memories and influence the school had on their lives to date. We just finished up our homecoming activities, and my congratulations to Alex and Helena on being designated the homecoming king and queen. We really had a very positive week all last week, culminating in the homecoming parade, as well as an absolutely beautiful evening for the football game, homecoming dance, and the pep band playing. And I do want to extend a very special thank you to Minnesota Motors. They sponsored free admission to the game and also a hot dog supper. It's one of many, many instances of the tremendous support that we continue to have in our district for our children. We have a career fair coming up on October 14th for the high school. We're very excited about that. I won't go through each of the grades, but each one has a specific focus, and appreciate all the work that has gone on to organize that, and to the businesses that will be coming to work on behalf of preparing our students for employment, both now and once they graduate. We had some facility issues with the big storm that rolled through on Saturday evening. My understanding is some flashing was torn loose from the roof of Adams. As the flashing was blown across the roof, it ripped a hole in the membrane. So my thanks to the folks up there, Doug Anderson, Ed Shea, Dan Ross, Mike Donahoe, and Scott Kolbeck. Doug in particular spent the entire night Saturday with about 40 buckets collecting water. We did have some get through, and so we had some damage to some technology in the workroom down below the cafeteria at Adams. I want to spend some time this evening just kind of laying the background that brings many of you here tonight, and that's where we're at with the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to highlight some of the rationale and the recommendations that I've made to the district. I do need to tell you that I am a data-driven person, so I look at the numbers, I consult with the people that are available to us to get good advice. As you know, and I unapologetically say, I am not a medical expert. So the guidance that I state comes from people that are medical experts. This came from the Star Tribune late last week. We can see that this thing has changed. The Delta variant is not the same as the virus we were dealing with last fall. You now see the increases in the younger people that are getting the infection, and then down at the bottom, you can see that nearly 4,500 students or school workers have tested positive for COVID-19 and were in their school buildings while infectious during the 2-week span ending September 25th. So this isn't simply indicative of Fergus Falls. The virus is quite prevalent throughout Minnesota in our school systems. This is a look at county cases, and you can see the yellow is where we're at in a comparable point of time from a year ago. Remember that this crescendo hit us kind of just around the Thanksgiving time into December. We went into distance learning, grades 7 through 12, right around Thanksgiving. Then we continued with that model until about January 20th. But you can see again, we are well ahead on the trajectory from a year ago with this COVID-19 Delta variant. I find this data really interesting, and this is an age breakdown. So who's getting the Delta variant right now? If you look at this dark blue bar from a year ago, that represented students that were under 18. The comparable bar is this kind of dark yellow now, and you can see that so far with the Delta variant, the yellow bar exceeds the total number of cases across all age groups from a year ago. I'm going to take you back a year in history to October 8th, 2020. Students and staff, we had 7 cases of COVID to date. As of this afternoon, when we added another 12 cases, we're up to 80. We're over 10 times the number of cases that we were a year ago. And keep in mind, at that time, we were in a hybrid schedule at the high school, and 7-12. Do we have community spread within our school? The answer is undeniably yes. You can see already, these are not big schools, folks. We don't have that many staff and students in these buildings, and you can see what's already happening with the numbers. As you look at it, the data longitudinally from a year ago, we had 180 cases all year last year. After 25 days, we're at 80. What's the impact been? Frankly, we have struggled with our staffing. I want to say my sincere appreciation to all our staff members for their flexibility in taking on additional assignments at the drop of a hat, things they aren't necessarily accustomed to doing. Our administration, with the help of the staff, have had to patch things together to try to have somebody in the classrooms and keep the education going. In order to do that, some difficult decisions need to be made. We've had to pull people aside that are reading interventionists. So those students that need help reading, maybe there was some learning loss last year or they're not at grade level, typically we would be doing intervention to support their learning. We have to pull those interventionists in order to cover the classrooms, so those students are not receiving the support that they both need and deserve. We have a lack of subs. I do appreciate a few of you have reached out and said, well, if you need subs, we're happy to help. We can cover, para positions can be employed in the district fairly quickly. We do need a criminal history background check. But short call subs is a longer process. There's no quick fix here. They are licensed through a state agency called PELSB. From the time they receive the short call sub application, we can expect that it will take 30 to 45 days for that application to be processed. And even then, I can say I'm extremely grateful for everybody that has been a sub in this building, whether on the student support side or in the classroom. But it is not the same having a substitute teacher in charge of the instruction as it is having the regular classroom teacher in front of the kids. The mitigation strategies we have at our disposal aren't, frankly, a lot. This is an airborne transmitted illness. We have our ventilation increased to the maximum amounts that would make sense for us. We can apply social distancing, but when we are at full capacity, there is no way that we can keep these students separated all day long. You are familiar with the behavior of children. They're very social, they're very active, they enjoy playing with their friends. all of those things make social distancing very, very challenging. We can do things like putting kids together in pods, but again, with the number of kids we have in our schools, they are going to have a lot of contact with one another. So masking. I'm not here to try to engage in any kind of debate about whether masking is effective or not. I rely on some agencies that I'll refer to in just a minute for that guidance. But as you can see, with the masking as a mitigation strategy, it's very simple and straightforward, at least. It's easy and quick to implement. On the con side, it's become very highly controversial, which is what brings so many here this evening. The science behind it, the philosophy behind it is pretty simple, as indicated in the diagram. It's simply trying to reduce the amount of spray, etc., that contains the virus from passing from student to student. Masking is a widely accepted mitigation response by many of our healthcare organizations. We primarily take our guidance from Otter Tail County Public Health, from the Minnesota Department of Health, and from the CDC. But before the start of the school year, we also received a letter advocating for schools to implement universal masking requirements from the Minnesota chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Minnesota Medical Association, the Minnesota Academy of Family Physicians. A year ago, our students were masked, and I can't remember, it seems like ages ago, quite frankly, but I think they were basically masked all 170 days. For 170 days, this district offered in-person K through 6 education. One of the very few, I believe, in the state of Minnesota. So I think as a strategy, as a mitigation attempt, it has some merit based on our history. Our current ask is for 8 days. We appear to be reaching a peak in the transmission. I really just am looking for a period where we can mask up and see if we can slow this thing down. Let us look at the impact it's having a couple weeks from now. I'm not promising it would, my recommendation would be to end it at that point. I would like to take a look at it in 2-week increments. But for those of you that are concerned that this is just the start of a year-long commitment to universal masking, that is not our intent nor our philosophy. Let's just do what we can to slow this down, continue to look at the data, and make reasonable, well-thought-out decisions. I view it as a short-term strategy. No one would be happier to be free of the mask than I am. I don't like wearing them, but if it means that we can stay in in-person learning, if it means that someone's mother or father is able to join them at Thanksgiving, I will put one on without question. Quarantine and isolation, another mitigation strategy. So this is when we prevent students from being in school. It can be done either at the individual level, by classroom, by building, or by district. We have done some quarantining so far this year, but as I said earlier, it's clear that this is spreading within the community. We don't see it within our school community. The contact tracing, because the students are very active socially, is difficult. And as you look at the feedback that we received last year about the results of distance learning, we saw the negative impact that it had on our students' learning. The sharp increase in the number of failed classes, parents indicating concern for their child's mental health, parents expressing concern at how exhausting it was to come home from work, do all those things that need to be done to manage a household, and try to help your child with his or her homework. We're really trying to employ strategies that take the pressure off the community, allow people to continue maintaining their jobs, and allow us to continue having the kids come in for in-person learning, which we think is the healthiest option for them. So I don't have a lot of great options to consider. In 20 years in this business, this is the first set of issues over the last 18 months that has kept me awake at all hours of the night and not liking any of the options that I had to choose from. But here's the question that I ask myself, given the following two options, which one's better for our kids? Asking them to mask up and hope that it's a relatively short-term period, or seeing us potentially slide into distance learning? And for me, that answer is clear, that I would prefer the mask up option. I'm going to go and respond to some of the questions that have come my way. There have been lots of rumors floating around. One is, did the district receive extra funding if it requires students to wear masks? We've received some very helpful federal funding over the course of this pandemic. Much of it utilized to buy personal protective equipment for staff and students, to help with the learning loss, to support the students learning with summer school and extra tutoring, etc. There's some money that can be used towards ventilation systems, but there is no quote-unquote bonus or anything like that for requiring masks. The mask use is a mitigation strategy. It has nothing to do with any finances. Does the district have a decision-making rubric that dictates a specific course of action? So some districts have adopted this. We talked about it, we did not, for a few reasons. One is the metrics are kind of challenging. The MDH has its own set of case rate numbers. They don't match the same formula that the CDC uses, so they're not completely in alignment, and the periods don't align. We also have the issue of, do you look at county case rates, do you look at local zip code rates, or do you look at the transmission that's happening within your students and staff? And if all those three components aren't in alignment, which one are you giving the most weight and by how much? A rubric model also takes away some flexibility from the district. Once you put that down, people would expect you to follow it. And there may be some other factors involved that would be important to take into consideration before you chose a particular mitigation strategy moving forward. And lastly, to be perfectly frank, most of the mitigation, I think all of the mitigation models that I've seen, the rubrics, at some point lead the district to a mask requirement. So we would be here having this discussion, frankly, whether there was a rubric in place or not. Why doesn't the mask requirement include 7th through 12th grade students? The main reason is that the older students at least have an opportunity to be vaccinated. The younger students did not. We did hear this with some frequency from parents that were concerned, starting the year, that the masking was the only protection that the younger students had because they weren't eligible for vaccination. I do fully realize that not everyone is on board with vaccination as well. We do strongly recommend that the older students continue to wear masks. Again, my priority, I want to see students continue to be able to attend school in person. This was an interesting one, and at the risk of injecting a little levity tonight, did the district not require masks for the older students because of the revenue brought in by sports? I will simply say we are not Alabama football. The revenue that we bring in through athletics doesn't come close to matching the cost of the activities. We do these things because they're healthy and good experiences for kids. Does the district get all of its money from the state up front? So basically the thought was that the district would say that we're not masking, load up all these students so that we can collect the state aid on them, and then do a bait and switch, and then require masks. So the state does periodic edits or audits of our numbers. We report our numbers, and then our revenue is based periodically on points during the school year based on our enrollment. And then there is a reconciliation that happens at the end of the year. So as our enrollment fluctuates during the course of the school year, our revenue will fluctuate based on our enrollment as well. Did the district always plan on getting the year started and then making a move to require masks? No. We have been monitoring where our districts and communities' COVID numbers were since before the start of the school year. I would be not upfront with you if I said that what has happened has come as a surprise. Frankly, as you looked at what was happening in the southern states that started 3 or 4 weeks earlier than we did, and the impact COVID-19 was having on them, the place that we're at now, given that we did not have a wholesale move towards masking, even as it was strongly recommended, this really should not hit anyone as a surprise. I'm going to switch my comments a little bit more on a personal side. People have commented to me that COVID-19 doesn't result in fatalities among children. And granted, the data that I'm familiar with would say that largely that is true. But the students still are carriers, and so they affect our staff. Some of them would be in high-risk groups. They infect or can pass on the virus to people in your homes, some of whom are medically fragile. And so it's not just about the students that come through the door, it's about the impact that the continued spread of this disease has on our loved ones in the community. And we don't know the battles that someone in the next household over have to face. And would it be a terrible thing if our compassion extended to our neighbor and we did what we could to try to slow down the spread or stop the spread of this disease? I found this quote that I wanted to share. True compassion means not only feeling another's pain, but also being moved to help relieve it. In my back-to-school letter back in August, I indicated that our ability as a community to address this pandemic would be handled as a Fergus Falls society in its entirety. Not just the medical community, not just the school system, not just the local businesses, but each of us doing our part to try to address the spread of this disease and its impact. I was reminded this morning that my first introduction as superintendent of this district, the Welcome to School letter, I had this quote: "Every community should set the welfare of its children as its highest priority." Whether you like me, whether you agree with me, simply know that the decisions that I recommend are based on what I feel, on the data that I have, to be in the best practices of keeping your students safe, the staff safe, the students in person learning, where I believe it is the healthiest environment. For the past 18 months, the school districts continue to ask, how can we help? We provided child care, we delivered meals door to door, we provided extra tutoring, mobile hotspots. On a Sunday morning, we gathered with Otter Tail County Public Health and other county emergency responders and the National Guard to assess whether Roosevelt can serve as a regional vaccination destination. We're currently providing tests for both students and staff. We tried to do our part and have been proud to try to do our part to help our community. After 25 days of watching COVID-19 to continue to rise in our school and community, it's become obvious that the helper is now needed to ask for help ourselves. We need the community's understanding and support. We need its cooperation. And if you were so inclined, its grace. That concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Any members of the board with questions for Superintendent Drake? Thank you, Superintendent. And then slightly out of order, we have a board report from Matt Lemke.
Yeah, I'll keep my reports short here. Lakes Country Service Co-op, we met September 23rd. Right now we're going through strategic planning. And it's just for those cooperative, is this area schools and county and city governments that form a cooperative. And so we are part of that cooperative as a district. One of the things that they do is work with health insurance and this is the time of year when they go for bidding. And so school districts and cities and counties are going out to get their renewals for insurance. And so we are going through that process right now through the cooperative. One of the things that we found out about, and I know Natalie talked about it, is about the food. And one of the things that we heard about is the cooperative partnered with the Cashway, which is a distributor of food, and they had our contracts with area school districts. They go all the way down to South Dakota. And anyway, they have had to come to the decision that they will not be able to honor that distribution chain, and will be ending that in November. And the main reason is because they cannot find drivers. And so they're no longer going to be able to do that. So there's going to be school districts, and we will probably be part of that, scrambling to find other means to make sure that we can provide food for our students. And so that is an ongoing thing. And so hopefully, they did give us 60 days, which is nice because they don't necessarily had to do that. But hopefully we will be able to help our members be able to find different ways of transportation. And that's what I have to report for Lakes Country Service Co-op. The other board that I just monitor is the Minnesota High School League, and they met on Thursday, October 7th. And just one of the highlights, and I just do a highlight of them, and one of the big highlights is the basketball shot clock that's been talked about for over 10 years, probably more over 10 years. And so anyway, the National Federation of High School Rules Committee has approved the shot clock, and so they are now going to go on to the next action of seeking input and then acting on that, hopefully in the December board meeting, for maybe implementing the shot clock into boys and girls basketball. And so we'll see where that goes. I know that's something that people have waited for, so we didn't get to sit and watch stall ball, but hopefully we'll see what that happens. So, and that's coming. The other thing is that with winter tournament planning, the boys basketball tournament had to be moved all to the University of Minnesota because there was a scheduling conflict with the Target Center. And so that was one change that they had to make. And so, and with that, that's all I have to report.
All right, any questions for Matt?
Hi, Dan. I'm going to ask a question I ask a lot. Was that Minnesota State High School League, did they have a virtual meeting where people from out of state could participate in the meeting?
They do not have a virtual meeting. We have talked about that, and I know we brought it up even with the Minnesota School Board Association about that, is that they do in-person, and they have had opportunities where you could call in last year a little bit, and so that you could go onto the meeting and listen to it, but they have not had it where you could actually do kind of a Q&A or have a discussion or anything like that. So, no.
Thank you. All right, anything else for Matt Lemke? We'll continue on with our general consent items. This is one motion to cover consideration for several items. First of all are the minutes for our September 27th board meeting are up for approval. And then we'll also have consideration for the bills and treasurer's report and approval there. So, treasurer?
Okay, this is one of the more exciting parts of the meeting, where we're going to talk about the bills. We have we run about a $34–35 million budget each year. So once a month, right after the bills have been paid, I as a treasurer, and then we rotate around the rest of the board members. So Steve and I sat down with Blake Stoltman, our business manager, and we reviewed 10 pages of bills that were paid in the last month. And then what we do is we go through and we look for anything that looks like it's a big number or pays that might look questionable, or just try and answer. He answers any questions that we might have. So this month we reviewed the budget, the bills were paid. And October is generally a pretty slow month. There's not a lot of big stuff going on, a lot of equipment and supplies being purchased. We did make our first payment. It was just over $300,000 to Stride, which is K-12 management. Most of you may know that as IQ Academy. So that was one of the bigger numbers. We have things that range all over the map. Football equipment. We had some scholarships that we paid to various colleges, which are pass-throughs from from other entities such as the 544 Foundation. We had $13,500 that we paid in subscription fees to Huddle, which is helps us to broadcast our TV and do stats for our various sports, and maybe some of you have utilized Huddle to keep up on our sports. We did put just about $11,000 into wrestling mats, I'm sorry, wall pads in the wrestling room. So these are some of the highlights from our meeting last week. A couple more we had $65,000 went to Buttweiler's on the roofing project that they just completed. Some curriculum, did some curbing over Adams, $10,000. By Bailey, $17,000 as part of our audit fees. One of the bigger numbers is our early childhood family education program through Lakes Country is just over $200,000. $35,000 to paint the Roosevelt Gym, and then about $30,000 went to the Community College, Minnesota State, for our PSEO, post-secondary education program. So those are some of the things that we look for each month. We bought some of our Chromebooks. There's always a few things that we question, but we've never found anything out of line. Blake he's not here tonight, but he's a great business manager, and he always answers our questions very thoroughly and very quickly. So, any of the board members have any questions? Oh, and as far as the treasurer's report goes, on the fund balance and such, our funds, most of our funds are pretty close to where they were 1 year ago. They also, I think with the exception of food services up a little bit, community ed is up a little bit, otherwise we're pretty close to what we were last year. So with that concludes my report. Any questions from board members?
Continuing on the general consent items, we'll have several personnel maneuvers that will be described by Elaine Janke, our HR director.
Good evening, school board members, and also a warm welcome to all new members in attendance tonight. It's good to see you. Under support staff hires, we have Craig Solia, custodian at Kennedy Secondary School, and Kevin Knudsen, district mechanical custodian throughout, like I said, the district itself, not a specific school. We have 3 new staff members at Cleveland School. That would be Holly Schmidt, student support aide, Liz Fournier, new NAR supervisor, along with Stephanie Lundy. Under certified staff hires, contract changes, Jenny Carlson, Allison Ringquist, and Heather Miller. They are 3 IQ elementary teachers, and they have an increase in their contract for this school year due to student enrollment. Claire Stish, we're offering her a long-term substitute contract with IQ also in the area of social studies. And then Joe Hikas, transportation careers teacher, and overload contract for effective this school year. So I would request board approval on these items.
All right, is there a motion to approve the general consent items?
So moved.
And a second?
Seconded.
All right, any discussion on any of the facets before us? All right, general consent items are approved. We don't have old business, and we only have one item of new business. I would seek a motion to approve the 2021-2022 assurance of compliance with state and federal law prohibiting discrimination. This was a document we received in our packet, assuring that we have had compliance with all the laws regarding discrimination. Would someone offer a motion to approve that document?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion on that? All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And that is approved. We will have a special school board meeting on Wednesday, October 20th at 7:15 a.m. Location to be determined. If we have a great interest, again, from the public, we'll convene the meeting in here. Otherwise, we'll have it in the outer community room as we normally do. A regular school board meeting will be on Monday, October 25th, 5:15. Again, probably outer community room. We'll see if the interest continues. And then that concludes our meeting. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on adjournment? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned. We're going to move right into our public comment listening session without any delay. And so with that in mind, I am appreciative also of the attendance and the interest from the community and how the school operates. We have an interest in having productive and peaceful discussion, and so there were rules of public engagement that we had at the top of the auditorium as you came in. I'm going to read through that thoroughly so we're clear about the expectations, and then we will proceed. We will have a list of speakers up. We do have a list of speakers up. And I'll call forward each person. If you are listed and you have determined that you don't care to speak, you can pass. And our clerk, Missy Hermes, will make notation about the topics, the primary issues that are brought forward by each speaker. And we will have Matt Lemke run in some cards. He'll give a notice card at 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and then an indication that time is up. Please finish your thought or your sentence. We won't be abruptly interrupting. So, public participation, comments from the public are restricted to the designated public forum listening session and not during the public meeting. We passed that, thank you. Members of the public are not allowed to participate in board discussion and debate by a specific invitation of the presiding officer. Members of the public are not allowed to interrupt or blurt out commentary unless they're recognized by the board chair. Members of the public shall not applaud, engage in conversation, or engage in other behavior through words or actions that may disrupt the proceedings of the board. The school board shall, as a matter of policy, protect the legal rights to privacy and due process of employees of the district. District employees have a legal right to privacy related to their private, confidential, or non-public personnel data as provided by Minnesota Statute 13.43. Persons wishing to address the board in the listening session shall have notified the Human Services Resources Director prior to the meeting and be placed on the list. This is our usual practice, and if in the future you have an interest in speaking with the board, then please notify the HR director prior to the meeting. During the listening session, it is asked that the next speaker on the list, following the current speaker, is ready to present and sitting close to the podium. We have about 30 speakers. We're looking to cut down transition time. During the listening session, members of the Board of Education will use the public forum as an opportunity to hear from the public and contemplate the information and opinions provided. This is a listening session, and no action will be taken tonight. The board may ask administration to review the concerns presented, and later action may take place. So please, during the session, be recognized by the board chair before speaking. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Groups of citizens wishing to speak on the same topic may be asked to confer and appoint a spokesperson to speak as to the topic, depending on the time available for the public forum. I don't think we'll revert to that. We already have our list. Please direct your remarks to the school board. Please follow the directions of the board chair. Prior to the conclusion of the 3-minute time slot, here's where it says a warning card will be raised to indicate your time is nearly up and another to show time has elapsed. Please finish your thought or your sentence. Topics which have been addressed will be recorded on an overhead screen for the group. If a topic has been addressed, please try to avoid redundancy. We realize there will be an overlap in people's sentiments, but if you believe it's already been addressed, then you could courteously just proceed. We are looking for a prohibition from obscene, profane, or threatening language, loud, threatening, or boisterous conduct that disrupts the meeting or the security of the public, defaming or personally attacking others, sharing or discussing private or confidential information about district employees, including private, confidential, or non-public personnel data. Members of the public who do not follow the direction of the board chair will be warned that further disruptive conduct will result in a removal from the meeting. If the conduct continues, The board chair may ask the speaker to leave. If the speaker refuses to follow the direction of the presiding officer, the officer may direct law enforcement to remove the speaker through any lawful means, or simply we might adjourn the learning session, or the listening session. And so, the learning session, we'll call it. So, with that in mind, we just wanted to lay down what the bottom line was too, in expectations for behaviors. So, with that, welcome, and I will call forward our first speaker of the evening, Laura Dewey, and then if Danielle Elliott could move closer to the podium and be prepared to speak next, that would be very much appreciated. Ms. Dewey, there you are, thank you.
Hello, as introduced, I am Laura Dewey. My husband Bart and I have 2 children, one who is in 6th grade and attends Kennedy Secondary School, another who is in 2nd grade and attends the school of choice. I am a 2002 Fergus Falls Public School graduate. I am the creator of the Fergus Falls Pre-K through 6 Parents Against Mask Mandate Facebook group. I want to start off by saying that I have been completely overwhelmed by our community, its support, its prayers, and so much more. Thank you for being brave and for speaking up for our freedom to choose, and for helping in the efforts to put decisions like masking our big issue. Where does this stop? The taxpayers get to choose what is right for their family and for our community. It is time we stand together to make our voices heard. I believe the silent majority is tired of being pushed around by the noisy few. The brave Southwest airline pilot who spoke out on social media today, he said, "You may support the mask and vaccine mandates because they fall in line with your current beliefs. But if we let this happen now, there will be a day when you are told what to do and it will not fall in line with your beliefs. We need to stand together and unite in our freedom to choose." I want to be very clear that this Facebook group was not created as an attack on the school board, our teachers, or our administration. We are here to support them all, including our students and parents. We need to work together to keep our staff and students in school while listening to the needs and wants of the parents and taxpaying citizens of our community. I want to directly address the media here today and remind you that it is your responsibility to present fair, honest, and complete coverage of controversial issues to your communities. I respectfully ask that the statements made tonight by the school board and all of the others that are brave enough to stand up and speak are not taken out of context, but represented accurately in your reporting. I also want to address the school board. You all have been elected by the tax-paying members of this community, and your job is to represent the majority. I also want to remind you of some of the policies that are stated in section 250, your policies, beliefs, operating guidelines, objectives, and responsibility. Individuals have the right of input into decisions that affect them. Emotional and physical well-being is her own choices and the results of those choices. We will involve staff, students, parents, and community in planning, funding, implementing, and evaluating programs in an ongoing process. We will change or Lastly, I want to address those that will be speaking tonight and all of those in attendance. Remember that we are here to work together to create a solution. We need to treat each other with respect and grace in difficult times like this, but also be firm in what we have to say and in the statements that we make. We cannot help the way we feel, but we can choose the way we act. Thank you for being here tonight and for supporting our school board, teachers, staff, and students.
Thank you, Ms. Dewey. I appreciate your courage in speaking. Danielle Elliott. And then if Mike Van Horn would like to proceed to the front, be close to the podium.
Hello, board members. I don't envy any of you in your position, I just want to say, and I want you to know I've been praying for you all week, and my heart just feels very much love for all of you and what the position that you're in, so I just want you to know that. But I just today ask that you respectfully consider the things that are on my heart, and what it really boils down to is simply reminding you of who you represent as a public servant. I too have been voted on a board before, and I know the drama that can entail. And being on board means putting your own personal preferences aside and responsibly representing the people who voted for you. One personal preference that I happen to know is that one board member sitting up there, I have a screenshot where he has admitted on social media that he would like to see our school district mandate the vaccine. But I would hope that these and other personal preferences get set aside as you make these times when I personally felt we should vote one way, but I knew the people that I represented felt differently, and I reminded accordingly. I was there to serve and represent the majority of the people that voted me to that position. Now, throughout this year, and you can even see, and Mr. Gray can see that the majority of the people that you represent are not masking. They have clearly demonstrated their beliefs and preferences, and so may I remind you, you have a responsibility in decision-making to represent the majority. It's not your job to make decisions based on what our society thinks. It's not your job to cater to culture and those who want perverse and hateful curriculum. It's not your job to pander to the minority. It's not your job to ensure what you personally believe happens. You are here to serve your people in whatever way you can, and I know you're not going to make everyone happy, that's impossible, but you are called to serve the majority of us who voted you here. And if you're unsure where the parents and staff stand, then I encourage you to send out a survey so that you can vote accordingly, or better yet, let the parents actually vote on issues like this. Let them make the decisions concerning how they should.
The virus that causes COVID-19, called SARS-CoV-2, has been found by the USDA in 40% of the deer herd. That means there's an animal reservoir for the virus, and it's here to stay. Those who fell ill in 2003 to the SARS virus, which is SARS-CoV-1, still showed immunity 17 years later. Vaccines lose efficacy in 6 months or less. Children are in a high risk group for heart infection. Countries have banned use of mRNA vaccines in 1 week since the COVID office reported after its vaccination. The report added that no one verifying natural immunity before subjecting them to the risks of the injection. Jeff Drake recommended to parents. COVID-19 due to authorization.
Mr. Van Horn, I appreciate your comments.
Public Health Director here in Arkansas County, COVID-19. It has been very clear that the district has the academic, social, emotional, and physical health of its students and the well-being of its staff at the forefront of the district, much of which has been difficult at best. I am here in support of the district's decision to use masking as a tool in adding staff and the broader community. For this, I have 3 points for you. Number 1, current community transmission of the virus strengthened or added when transmission worsens. While many states in the nation appear to be experiencing a decrease in cases, this is not, and in recent weeks it has swiftly continued. While illness in pediatric COVID-19 cases is generally mild, there are tragic examples, and this is not where this is not the case in more vulnerable populations. Minnesota data reported as of Tuesday, October 5th for pediatric and school age showed pediatric cases continue to sharply increase and have surpassed the spring peak for all age groups. Population in the region. And the number of cases this school year have far outpaced last year in our community. This variant is different than what we experienced last fall. With the Delta variant, one sick person can infect 3 rounds of transmission. With the Delta variant, we would see 343 cases after 3 rounds of transmission. And number 3, recent studies show masking is derived from the combination of 1, source control during exhalation, blocking respiratory particles from entering the environment, and 2, wearer protection during inhalation, blocking the wearer. Use of cloth masks to control the spread of SARS-CoV-2, where you can find further data and multiple studies for reference. In addition, I'd like to highlight 2 recent CDC COVID-19 cases in counties with and without school mask mandate requirements. Policies and school-associated COVID-19 outbreak strategy would help in preventing the transmission of COVID-19. Masks played with other mitigation distance learning as was experienced last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. I appreciate your research and your comments. Mr. Moulter, Tim Moulter.
I have children in the school district. I'm also a pastor and a taxpayer in this community. I'd like to start by saying I think there are 3 main issues about the mask mandate that bother me. The first is who decided this, the second is how it was decided, and the third is why it was decided. So who decided this? We were told in the October 4th email from the Superintendent Drake that he had a conversation on October 1st with the state disease expert, mask mandate for the kids based on the potential. Now we hear the story change that the Minnesota Department of Health and others were also involved in that conversation. The school board minutes show from August 23rd that Stephen Vigorsa proposed a resolution given the super on August 10th. Why didn't the elected board want the responsibility to call an emergency meeting and vote on these matters if needed? I found that per school district policy 302, these personal judgments by the superintendent are not final until examined by the school board. So did the board review? I truly hope so. Or CDC, so they're not required to wear a mask. I've informed their teachers of this as well, who have, by the way, have done an excellent job and are also tired of these mask mandates. Told by health experts, as quoted in the New York Post, children are less at risk for COVID, according to the vast amount of data we have gathered over the last. It would appear because those students are not yet old enough to be vaccinated. And I'm not against vaccines, I'm not against masks, I'm just against mandating those things. Mandating someone to get the jab as a shot. We did mask mandates last year, that didn't slow down COVID. Why do we think that's why is proper hand washing no longer being mentioned? Just masks. Recently, 3 Pfizer scientists admitted DC and State Department of Health refused to even address the possibility of natural immunity, as does this district in the community at Calvary Chapel. I've talked with many families whose students have been bullied at school over the mask mandate last year. And I've talked to those students personally to them again this year. This mask mandate tries to override the God-given authority of parents to govern the health of their children and of their family, and social tool and the stigma of being bullied over not wearing a mask. Lastly, I'd like to see the elected school board vote to remove the mask mandate for the pre-K grade 6 students, or the superintendent reverse his mandate decision. Thank you, and I hope we have a better school year this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mulder. Amanda Davidson.
My name is Amanda. I hold a master's degree in clinical counseling and human services. I first just want to say that I have no clue what it's like being you, and I can only imagine how difficult all of this has been. I just thank you for in our community. As a professional in the field of mental health, there's a high value placed on proactive who are in the human services field. I know it matters to you that you have a full understanding of the impact your decisions make. I do understand the data that you showed tonight, which combined show one aspect of the data being physical health. However, why are we failing to consider these other important aspects of data, such as studies showing that wearing masks show increased social anxiety, difficulty in communication, increased stress, and overall negative psychological well-being? I'd like to know why, as those appointed to represent our community in the public schools, were these sets of data not taken into consideration? Community members and parents deserve a comprehensive explanation and data showing that the net overall health and wellness impact of mask wearing in kids ages 3 through 12 relative. How do we know this decision was made in the children's best interest? Outside of the many mental health concerns, what are the results of the polls you've given the very people affected by the staff shortage, being the teachers? What are their thoughts on this mandate being a solution? How have 3-year-olds up through age 12 been affected by wearing masks in their classrooms? What do they see as being the solution? What learning and developmental changes have they noticed? What behavioral difficulties have they seen in their kids, in their classes? What is it like being a teacher wearing a mask, trying to communicate, teach, and care for these 3-year-olds through 12-year-olds? What options do these teachers see as the most beneficial and effective for their classrooms? Do the teachers feel that the staff shortages that they experience warrant such a decision? I received an email from a public school teacher after this teacher learned I was too concerned about this mask mandate. This is what the teacher shared, and it is being shared with permission. This teacher is speaking on behalf of other teachers at this school. She writes, "We do not want mask mandates at all. We are short-staffed. As a result, this is the decision they've made, thinking it will help. We don't want kids in masks. We don't want to wear masks. It so impedes learning and development at these young grades. Kids need to see mouths and learn phonics and proper speech techniques. It's insane to think we teachers will have to try to properly teach and expect growth while wearing masks. This mandate completely disregards the mental health, learning, and development side of this equation. Also, threatening online learning is a tactic to force us into compliance and punish us if we do not. How is this a healthy response of the leaders of our public school? A healthy, strong leader will not gaslight others, the public, and the people they serve. It is completely unhealthy. Please do not fall victim to the theme we see across the country where disagreement divides people. This is about our kids, and it is about our right to choose. We hope and ask that you would take this opportunity to lean in and listen to the voice of those you represent. All of us here tonight, and know that these are the people here trying to explain how we feel. Please listen to what we are saying. If you're not fighting for what's best for our kids and what your community is saying, we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda Davidson. Kelsey McIntosh Elliott.
Members of the school board, Superintendent Drake, thank you for having me today. My name is Kelsey McIntosh Elliott, and I'm here today to speak in support of our school district having a mask mandate to help slow the spread of COVID-19. I appear here today only as a parent of a child in this district and not in any other role or capacity. As the school board knows, I spoke to you in August asking the school board and the school administration to follow the recommendations of the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health at that time and adopt a mask mandate. We didn't see eye to eye at that time, and I appreciate the fact that you are now adopting a mask mandate. I asked for the school administration and the school board to please take this seriously. I was pretty disappointed to read an article in our newspaper over the weekend with administration voicing a personal dislike of masks and stating that there would be no disciplinary action for non-compliance. To me, if we only do this for 2 weeks and there is no disciplinary action or enforcement, we're setting up a mandate for failure. And in fact, it's not a mandate if there's no enforcement. Refusing to wear a mask in violation of this mandate should be handled like any other disciplinary issue. There should be a clear behavioral plan for action. It's no different than a student showing up for school in a swimsuit or with an offensive t-shirt on. Schools have dozens and dozens of rules that our students follow every day for the health and safety of everyone in the building, and it's efficiently and effectively dealt with by our administrators, and I'm asking you to do the same. I'm asking all parents to please help the school district and our school board and our community get this pandemic under control. I've seen posts in the anti-mask parent group asking, when is this going to end? What's going to be next? Well, that, my community members, depends largely on what we do as parents and members of this community and what our school administration is trying to do in our schools, for which I commend them. This pandemic has dragged on and evolved into variants because unfortunately, portions of our community have quite simply not done their part. We have the power.
Please refrain from any negative behavior or action. This is a first warning, and if we continue to have that behavior, we will discontinue the meeting. Please continue.
Thank you. We have the power to either be part of the problem or part of the solution. So please help us be part of the solution. Right now, that means masking up our kids to protect them, to protect our educators and the whole community. This is a public health issue, nothing more. It is turned into a circus, and it does not have to be this way. This is a public health issue, and we should be listening to the experts in the field, the Department of Health, Ottertail County Public Health, the CDC, and I appreciate Superintendent Drake's clear presentation tonight of the facts and the statistics in our community and what is being seen in our community right now. My ask tonight is for you to please mask up your children in compliance with this district's mask mandate. We need to model kindness and compassion for others, being proactive to protect ourselves, and respect for rules and regulations for our children, and that starts at home. To our school administrators and school board, please take this seriously. Please help our administration with enforcement of this issue. And I'm going to leave you today with these final thoughts. It's time for a community to come together, not to be further divided. We live in a wonderful community. There are a few things we can probably agree on. We have excellent schools and educators in this community, and they should be supported and applauded for the work they do every single day, including Superintendent Drake. From what I'm hearing, they're exhausted, and they want to focus on educating our kids. We all love the children in our community immensely. We want them to be safe and healthy. We want this pandemic to be over. So the way to do that right now is to mask up our children. Thank you all very much for the work you do for this community and for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments. I'll just speak for myself to say I really want to continue. I do want to hear the rest of this week is on the list. And so we'll proceed next with Michelle Shearer. And then coming down to prepare Joanna Tisdale. Thank you.
Enrolled in the grades that are included in the mask requirements. Recently, this question was posed. Do you think that parents who are opposed to masking are seen as being not supportive of our community and our school? I want to take this opportunity to be clear. I love our schools. My kids love their teachers. The masking issue does not change my feelings towards them, and I should hope that the feeling of me not wanting to mask my children changes their feelings towards me. Choosing to have my children participate in wearing masks or not is simply that. It is a personal choice, a family choice, and it does not mean that we do not support our schools and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shearer. Joanna Tisdale, please take the mic, and we'll look next for Amber Simonson. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. Oh, you guys look great up there. I'm used to talking to teenagers, so this might get a little awkward. I've got a few handouts, if that's okay. Is that all right? I've got some handouts that Amanda just gave. These just come from Detroit Lakes Public Schools, and you guys can look at them. Don't have to, but I love the way that they have put a plan into place. I think part of the problem with some of this stuff for me, it seems like there isn't clear expectations, there isn't clear guidelines that have been put forth by the school district, and that's okay, but I think there can be moving forward. I think that putting the mitigation into place is a good idea, because then the parents, the staff, and the students know what to expect. And this is what Detroit Lakes has put into place in their school district, and it's so, so neat. I also want to just say just a couple of things. Guidelines, policies, and procedures just need to be clear. I'm a huge proponent of health. I'm a nurse myself. I want people to remain healthy, absolutely, but holistically for sure. The reality of students in this specific age that is required to get masked is they get sick. They do. They get sick all the time, and parents can attest to that. They are developing their immune systems, and part of developing their immune systems is getting sick and developing those antibodies to fight sickness properly. I don't know if anybody was around, but there was such a huge uptick in colds this summer. I know that people at the walk-in clinic can attest to that. And I have a suspicion to why that did happen is because we were masking up. Again, that's speculation on my hand. You don't have to take that into consideration, but that's just a suspect that I have. And that we are just not allowing our kids to play in dirt as much as they should, and maybe drink from the hoses like they should. Sorry, that's personal preference. Gone are the days are the pox parties. Anybody that grew up in the 80s, the 70s, chicken pox, where you literally take your children and rub them on the other children so that they can get that disease, so they can develop the antibodies to it. And that's just, it's fine. We're not there anymore, and that's okay. I like natural immunity. I like vaccine immunity. They both work. And I like the option to choose. Every parent should have the option to choose. I might be strange in my perspective in that, but it's just what I believe in. I appreciate those who are immunocompromised. My heart aches for those that are truly suffering from this virus. I have seen family friends that have passed away from this, and it's so sad, and I cry with them. And I'm not negating the fact that there's a virus out there, but like a lot of other people have spoken to, is that it's not going away. It really isn't. It is here to stay. And the question is what can we do moving forward? So this is what I would ask you to consider. Consider getting rid of the contact tracing. Consider it. Just consider it, as some other school districts have. It has been shown, I know in last year as everybody was masked up, that contact tracing, I believe students and the staff members that were sending home, 90 to 95% of them never tested positive and never developed any symptoms of any sort. And it seems like that trend is going that way again this year. From this, I already said that. Okay, so that is what I would ask you to consider. And as a last-ditch effort, if none of these things are put into consideration with the handouts that I passed out today, I would ask them maybe just to consider also putting a task force together. If none of the school board members want to be responsible, don't take this in the wrong tone or the wrong way, responsible for doing this, again, don't take this the wrong way, but consider putting a task force together, people that represent both sides, so a bipartisan committee of sorts to put together some sort of things moving forward. That is my suggestion. Again, just consider, you guys. I really do appreciate the time, and again, you look great. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you for the compliments. Very good, and we'll keep moving. I'm sure undoubtedly you've noticed some speakers are going over 3 minutes, and everyone's being very respectful and close to that time limit, and so we're, like I said, not going to cut anyone off. Amber Sykes, please take the podium, and then we look for Ethan Johnson next.
All right. Short. Thank you so much for allowing us a chance to voice our concerns and just allowing us a chance to speak about this mask mandate. I guess I'm going to start with the statement in the email that went out regarding the mask mandate. Said, wearing a well-fitted mask stops these droplets from spreading to others. I know we're not here to do a argument about whether masks work or not, but this is data that I have found regarding that topic, so I really want to share it. The CDC recently published information stating that cloth masks will not protect against smoke particles. Smoke particles are much larger than virus particles. Virus particles are tiny. The typical virus is 0.3 microns in size. Now, it doesn't matter if you know what a micron is, compared to sizes that I'm giving you. So 0.3 microns in size. Coronavirus particles are typically 0.13 microns in size. Smoke particles are 10 microns. If a person is not protected from a smoke particle by a mask, how can they possibly protect us from a virus that is 1/100th its size? Just some scientific facts put forward. So information like that is what causes us as parents to question strongly the effectiveness of a mask mandate for our children. And on the opposite end, we consider the possible detriment to our children as a result. As I'm sure you're aware, kids in this generation are being attacked from every side, and mental health issues among our youth have risen exponentially, with suicide being a leading cause of death among our youth. I personally feel as a parent, I'll do whatever I can to prevent my children from being forced to wear the mask, which causes increasing anxiety for my kids, which I've spoken to them about. I heard from my children last year so many times, Mom, I can't breathe in gym, but we have to run around and we have to do things, but Mom, I can't breathe. It's difficult. I'm a healthcare worker, so I know what it's like to wear a mask day in and day out. I know exactly how I feel with the physical and cognitive fatigue associated with breathing air that is not as oxygenated as it should be. I experience overall tiredness, headaches, and at times difficulty with even word retrieval and recall. In Googling the early symptoms of hypoxia, I discovered that the most common are restlessness, anxiety, headache, dizziness, and confusion. If it's difficult for adults to function normally under these conditions, how much more difficult is it for kids? I don't want this for my children, especially as they're trying to learn. OSHA states that the optimal range of oxygen in the air for humans is between 19.5 and 23.5%. Their regulations forbid sending workers into a space with less than 19.5% oxygen. A recent video was circulated of a man who used a gas meter for his job. He demonstrated how putting the meter in front of his mouth without a mask did not set off the monitor. After he placed the mask on his face, he put the sensor inside the mask, and shortly after, the mask started beeping, and he showed the numbers as they declined, ultimately reaching as low as 16% oxygen. How safe is that for our kids if that's below the level that is recommended for any worker by OSHA? Another question I have is why is it only the pre-K through 6th graders, can't come to close. The vaccine has been shown not to prevent transmission. The CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, was recently on CNN admitting that it's now known that the vaccine cannot prevent transmission. So that I have difficulty understanding how that's the ability to be vaccinated, whether these children are or not, is actually going to help with the older children as well. Ultimately, I thank you for your consideration. I thank you for what you do. And as other people have said, I just encourage you to really represent families in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simonson. Ethan Johnson, and followed by Caleb Crook.
So an old man lives in a house, and a hurricane is coming, and the water is rising. A police car comes by and says, "We're evacuating the place, you gotta go, let's go." He says, "No, I have faith. God will save me." And the water continues to rise, and he goes up to the 2nd floor, and a guy in a boat comes by and says, "Buddy, jump in the boat, we gotta go." He says, "No, I have faith, I have conviction, I will be saved." "No, I will be saved. I have conviction." He says, "God, what happened? Why didn't you save me?" And God says, "I sent you a car, I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter. What did you think safety was going to look like?" I'm a teacher in this district, and I do not want to wear a mask. But I do anyway. Because I missed a day last week, and there was no substitute available. My absence was covered with the teacher equivalent of masking tape and barbed wire, of my administrator taking a class, and a para taking another class, and another teacher on their prep time taking a class. And I have 4 children in the district right now. I do not want them to go distance learning. I do not want to teach distance learning. Because whatever the negative mental and developmental effects there are, distance learning is a far more disruptive process. And we can have masks and stay in school, or we cannot have them and eventually go to distance learning. We have gone through this before. We have heard this song. We have danced this dance. We know. And God has granted us the knowledge and insight to stop this. All we have to do is work together. That's it. There's no real sacrifices unless you call wearing a mask sacrifice. And when I consider my grandfather, who was in a tank division of World War II, and my grandmother, who was in the Navy at the same time, and when I consider my father, who volunteered for Vietnam, and other people who served this country in various forms, a mask doesn't qualify even as an inconvenience, much less a sacrifice. Especially in the each other. If you have diabetes and choose not to use insulin, that is a personal choice. If you can cough and give your neighbors keepers. In World War II, all of America planted victory gardens, bought treasury bonds, collected scrap metal, rationed butter, together as a community, all to save American lives overseas, and here we are debating masks. My father and grandfather would be disappointed. He would know you need to stop, work together, and use the knowledge God has given us to help each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate it. And again, with the clapping. Moving on to Caleb Cook as our next speaker. Welcome to the podium. And Dr. Gutzmer will follow.
Thank you. My name is Caleb Cook. I'm a registered nurse. I work at the Veterans Home. That's not necessary for qualifications to speak, but discussions about the science of whether or not mask works in the spreading of the disease, because I think that that is a distraction from a real issue. What I think, first of all, that is really important to this group behind me, and these represent only a fraction of the people in education of our children, is the parents' responsibility. We entrust them to the schools, but it's our will that the school should be carrying out. And we reject fundamentally that anyone but the parents have the ultimate decision of what kinds of things go on our kids' faces. So, the discussion about whether or not masks are effective, or what is the proper way to address COVID, is, again, it's a side issue. What we believe in is the freedom of parents to educate and protect their children the way that they see fit. We believe that authoritarianism and control, mandations, threats, promotion of fear are the wrong ways to protect our children. We believe that promoting personal responsibility, freedom of choice, is the right way to do that. One of the things that I keep hearing is about the experts say this, the experts say that. About COVID, an awful lot, in the last year and a half, 2 years. I'm not sure that they've gotten one thing right. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people distrust when you say, well, the experts are saying this, and this is why we need to make this decision. The health and welfare of your kids is, this is what the current scientists or the experts say. We feel like we've been under the tyranny of the experts, and that's not the America that we want to live in. That's not the America that we want to raise our children in, where they are subjected to this kind of tyranny. And science has led to the worst excesses and abuses of power, the destruction of lives, nations, and civilizations in the history of our world. In this community and that are on this board, I love you guys have taken up this mantle of leadership too much to allow you to be governed by the ideology that says we need to give that responsibility to the parents to make that choice, and believe that it is the autonomy of the individual and the freedom of choice that is what will build our country to be the kind of country we want to live in.
To the podium and encourage Rachel Olson to come forward.
Hi, I'm Julie Duxmer. I've been a physician for close to 30 years and a general surgeon for over 22. We also have 3 daughters in schools in Fergus. Nothing I say here represents anyone but me. I thought I would come to talk to you armed with scientific facts and data that I know you as school board members have already scoured them. You already know this variant is at least twice as contagious as the original, that masks contain spread, and that many school districts, including ours, have had success in preventing and containing outbreaks by masking as part of their strategy to continue in-person classes. You know there is no question spread of COVID-19. I'm not going to get sick as often as adults. There are in the US almost 700 kids on anyone. We know the children's hospitals have been their primary caregivers. How many other kids have lost other people really important to them, or will continue to? I don't think we can minimize those psychological door to COVID. If wearing a small face covering for even part of the day would have decreased the chance of carrying the virus to him, they would have jumped at that chance. You have been chosen to keep our kids safe and further their education. I know you're getting a lot of backlash. I'm sorry. In medicine, we talk about needing 8 positives to counter 1 negative, and you are getting a lot of negatives. I want to be one of the positives. I admire and I appreciate everything you do, and I really appreciate how you put our kids first. I really don't envy your position. I've told you this before. If you could base your decisions simply on the science and on the public health, it would be a lot simpler, but you have a lot of conflicting, competing considerations. I trust that you will make the best decisions regarding the safety and the education of our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gutzmer. And now we'll hear from Rachel Olson.
You got it.
All right.
Hi, my name is Rachel Olson, and I currently am a 1st, 3rd, and 4th grader in our school district. I first want to preface my quick speech by saying that this world of quarantining is not new in my family. When my daughter was 20 months old, she was diagnosed with cancer, which required treatment for 2.5 years. Because of this, we had to quarantine a lot in her journey because she was immunocompromised. We knew the infectious period of viruses and bacteria before it was cool to know, because we had to be on high alert. Now, with that being said, we didn't expect the world around us to be responsible for our children's health and safety. I don't believe in quarantining healthy people or having healthy children wear masks. We believe that the risks of wearing masks far outweighs the benefits for our children, especially since, as we now know, the dangers of this virus to children are minuscule. We need to take a more holistic approach to educating our kids, which all this has been mentioned. They need to have normal social interactions, see each other's faces, and learn to read the expressions of their classmates and teachers. They should not be treated solely as vectors for diseases. Last year, we were so relieved when we heard that the district was giving the families the right to decide this year. And we enrolled our kiddos because we love our public schools. It was nice for me to get a break. Okay, now that the masks are required again, we're going to have to reassess our enrollment in the district if the requirement stays intact after these 7 days. Since our family has already had the virus and have natural immunity, which nobody talks about, the risks of wearing masks outweighs the benefits. Like I stated earlier, we love our teachers and administration. Like, we love you guys. You guys do look good up there. It's good. This is a difficult decision to make. We hope you hear our concerns and let us speak before now. And then, even though I do like the page, and I saw that there was to say masks optional and in-school learning. Also, if we go distance learning, we'll have to reassess our decision to stay with the district or pursue other options for our children's education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments as well, Rachel. And Johanna Hartley-Orsman will be our next speaker, followed by Tom Hoover.
First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone in the school district for everything they do for our children, and especially our teachers who are teaching through a time they never would expect to teach through. I'm sure if you asked teachers 10 years ago, they'd never expect to see masks in school, or some of them didn't even know what online Zoom even existed. So to see that change happen last year for our preschool child, my child has an extremely rare chromosome duplication that only has 50 study cases worldwide, and most of you have probably never heard of it. In fact, I didn't know of it until my child was diagnosed as a very sick infant, and so I had to make decisions for his education. I moved to Minnesota from California because I knew the schools here were better. That was a priority for me and my child. And the day that I learned of the mask mandate, it was just put in a note. I didn't receive an email. It was just a note in my parent pocket in my child's preschool, and it was not addressed to me personally. It wasn't addressed to any of the parents. And I want sensory issues. My child is in speech therapy. I cannot comprehend speech therapy as a previous student in speech therapy, how it can be effective through mask wearing. They use tongue depressors, they use pronunciation, they use phonics, and these are not things that can be achieved with the teacher wearing masks as well as with the students wearing masks. We'll get back to it. I had to wait for days and just be in fear of my child's health and how school he had what I thought was best. And now I have to consider pulling him out of preschool and hiring a private speech therapist to come into our home and to pursue homeschooling, because he will not be successful in Speech for All Child to succeed. I'm sure we can all agree on that. And I just think this needs to be a choice. Yes, there are risks, far outweighs the risk of a mild case of COVID, the risk that I'm willing to take for my child's education to do it because it's our job as parents to do the best for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Appreciate your comments. And now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. I am here to speak in support of the board and the process that goes into your decision making. As an official, I take into consideration not only the feedback received from interested parties, but the reasoning, facts, as well as the greater good. I sincerely thank all of you for the time you invest in our community to make it a better place. We need to recognize that we are all human, only to become quite the opposite. Science is not a product, it's a process. A key part of science is healthy skepticism, trying to disprove accepted. We respect the time and effort the researchers put into their craft. We still need to keep our minds open and stay educated. I believe that requiring masks will at least do something to slow the spread of effect on the conversation that we are having at this very moment. I have seen too many personal attacks and too much name-calling on social media, and while it may initially satisfy an urge, our society has let some corporations to harvest our data and use that to drive the wedge even further. Social media users are a commodity to be bought, traded, and sold. Learning how to manipulate that product has the benefit of the ability to change how people perceive and react to sensitive topics. This information is then fed back into their algorithms in order to steer us toward more conflict and more profits, becoming a vicious cycle. Ask yourselves, does Facebook have the best interest of our school district and students in mind? No. Their objective is profit, seemingly at any cost. Are you willing to be a pawn on their board? Instead, try this. Find someone you disagree with and sit down for a cup of coffee. It's going to take some practice, but try listening more than speaking and try to put yourself in their shoes. This is the behavior that we ought to be modeling for our children. It's not going to be easy, but nothing that's worthwhile is. With some hard work, I bet you find we have much more in common than we realize. Highlighting our differences fills out that 24-hour news cycle, but let's start focusing on our similarity rather than those differences. In closing, I thank the school board for having the courageous conversations, thinking critically, and taking decisive action to make our schools as safe as possible. I would also ask that our entire community stop, take a deep breath, take a step back. In the end, we live here together, and we need to do everything we can to come together to do what we feel is best for our community. We need to do our best to take our emotions out of the discussion. Take a break from social media. It is much too convenient to embed yourself in an echo chamber of like-minded thoughts, and the more time one spends in that place, the more deeply rooted one's beliefs can become. And what suffers is civil discourse. We're better than this, folks. Let's get together, get back to the basics, and start relearning how to have conversations with each other. Nobody is going to get everything they want, but we can keep striving for the most equitable solutions, and we can keep that power in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rufer. I appreciate your comments. Dr. Joellen Coleman-Petrick. And then please move forward, whoever will proxy for Mike Thorson.
Hello. Close. My name is Joellen Coleman-Petrick. I am the mother to I'm the mother to 3 children in K through 6 in the Fergus Falls public school system. For the last 6.5 years, I have also had the pleasure and the honor of serving this community as a cardiologist at Lake Region Clinic and Hospital. I would first like to say thank you to each and every board member here today. You have been placed in an impossible position, making a decision that either way will be faced with great resistance by a portion of our community. I support your decision, and I thank you for it. I believe you made the right decision. I ask that everyone in this room today treat these individuals with kindness and respect. I would also ask the same, that you treat all the medical care providers in this room today with kindness and respect. We are not the villains or tyrants here. COVID is. Just because what we tell you is not what you want to hear, it is the truth. Please be aware there is so much misinformation out there that tells you what you want to hear. Just like everyone here, I'm tired of COVID. I've had COVID. My family has had COVID. I've had many friends, family, and neighbors struggle with COVID. But I have also had several close family friends die of COVID. I have also had many patients in our community die of COVID, and I have treated many more patients that now are dealing with long-term complications from the infection, including long-term heart issues. It is a serious medical threat to our community. In the 25 years I have worked in healthcare, I have worn a mask for countless hours to prevent infection in my patients because it is the right thing to do. For those of you here today that disagree with the school board's decision, I get it. I agree with you. Wearing a mask can be uncomfortable. They can be hot, claustrophobic, itchy, and can cause skin irritation. But it is a small, temporary price for us to pay to keep our community healthy. I can personally assure you that from my personal experience, wearing a mask does not deprive me of oxygen or cause brain damage. It does not promote infection in the person wearing it. As Dr. Betzmer and myself always wear a mask when going into the operating room to protect a patient from infection, we ask that you send your children to school wearing a mask to protect each other, their teachers, and the school administration. This is a very transmissible virus that we need to contain with several precautions, including having our kids wear masks, washing hands, and staying home when sick. I get it. We don't like to wear masks, but we need to wear masks to protect our community. Our children need to wear masks to protect our community. Please lead by example and wear a mask. Have your children wear a mask to school and talk to them about why it is important to wear one. Our kids are smart and resilient. They will understand why it is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman-Petrick. Appreciate it. And do we have a proxy for Mike Thorson that wishes to speak?
No. You got the next best thing. Sorry, we were on our way back from Milwaukee today, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. So I don't have anything prepared. Man, this is nerve-wracking, isn't it? Jeez. There's people behind you. Anyway. I just wanted to make sure, I know I emailed all of you separately and corporately, so you already know where I stand. And I wanted to make sure that I was here to support you and our staff and our administrators. I actually disagree with the board, but I only disagree with you because I thought we should have done this a long time ago. At the beginning of the school year, emailed all of you that position, and I again reiterated it when you came up with this new mandate, and I would encourage you to consider doing it for the entire school. But I just wanted to make sure that I was here so that I could state my position, that I support you, even when I do disagree with you. I respect you, and I am so glad that I know a lot of you, and I know where you're coming from, and I know that your hearts are in the right place, and that your minds are working really hard to try to figure out how to get ourselves through this next phase. And first of all, as Minnesota, we're behind on almost all trends, whether it's fashion or pandemics. What we've been seeing going around in all the different parts of the country on the coast earlier this summer and fall, it's now just got here. It's going to recede, it's going to go away, but during this period, I think this is a prudent and appropriate step, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Mike Thorson. And now we'll have Dr. Tyler Lacey speak, followed by Debbie Kaminsky. Welcome to the podium, if you're here. All right, continue. We can check back for Dr. Lacey. If the doctor arrives later, Debbie Kaminsky, please take the mic. Thank you.
A mom wrote me, my high school son, let's call him Brent, was a high achiever, football, many other sports, straight A's, a happy teen, and then COVID hit. Our son got really bad headaches, and we tried everything, but it just got worse. We brought him home for distance learning, and over the next few months, I watched my once active, outgoing son slowly lose interest, isolate more, talk less, and lose significant amounts of weight. What was happening to my once happy son? One day I snooped on his phone and found texts where he was talking about suicide. He's now going to therapy on 2 different meds, trying to regulate his severe depression and anxiety. I'm a master's degree psychologist. I've been doing that for more than 30 years. And I just want to ask you, when was the last time you checked in with parents and said, hey, how are your kids doing? I did that yesterday and my inbox blew up overnight. Blew up. I can't even tell you how many stories I got from kids that are really struggling with these mask mandates. I got one from a mom who said, my 8-year-old has endured mask wearing in kindergarten, 1st grade, and now 2nd grade. And the stress of this has landed us in the ER with severe migraines and even took us to Mayo Clinic. My kindergartner, another mom said, my kindergartner hyperventilated, her face broke out until I took the masks off. You know, our quote, Superintendent, all due respect, Superintendent Drake, that every community should set the welfare of its children at its highest priority, that is not happening with mask mandates. Another mom came to me and she said, my daughter comes to me with fear, crying, Mommy, I can't breathe wearing a mask. I've heard about children digging in trash cans to find masks because they can't find their own mask. So they're digging in the trash can to find a mask and putting it on so they don't get in trouble. That's not okay. This is the harm that these decisions are making with our kids. I got so many more moments like this in my inbox. Please look these kids in the eyes behind their covered faces and know that this is what your decisions are doing to our children. I'm Debbie Kaminsky, as I said, and I really care about kids. My kids went to school here in 2014 and 2017, they graduated. So Superintendent Drake, I don't know you personally, but I do know that you have the best interest of our kids in mind, and I do know that there is so much misinformation going on out there. I want to let you know that 68% of our children have identifiable signs that masks are harming them. 68%. I hesitate to go here, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I want you to hear this. This is important. Child abuse is defined as the physical and emotional mistreatment of children. Masking them so they can't breathe, humiliating them, shaming them, and isolating them is abuse. It is abuse. This will have long-term effects on our children. And somebody else mentioned that suicide is up. It is up 15%. We say stop the spray and stop the spread. This has a 99.9% recovery rate across the board, not just for the young, but even for the elderly. I think the elderly is at 99.4%. Has a recovery rate. We know we can heal people. The CDC says on their website there is zero data that supports that mask wearing saves lives. That is true. This virus is not about, or this whole thing is not about a virus. It is about compliance. I want you to actually do a little research and find out who the CDC is. Go do some research. Again, with all due respect, I think so many are only looking at mainstream media. Mainstream media is lying to us. They are lying to us. Children need faces and physical touch for emotional and physical health. It boosts their immunity. It creates empathy. It helps them feel affirmed as a human being. What are we doing to our kids? We are shutting them down. Again, never before have we not had a virus going around. Do you remember when we closed schools? I don't remember when it was. My kids were in school, and we closed a school because there were too many sick kids. So we closed one of the schools. It's happened. We will never not have variants. We will never not have viruses going around. Wearing masks does not impact that. We really are being deceived. I ask you, why are we being forced by our government, who is for the people, for forced masks? We are being deceived, and I ask you to go search on DuckDuckGo, go search on Rumble, go search on BitChute. Why have our emotions?
Your final comments?
Yes, and I was told that I could have Adrienne Hartwell's time because she's not here. So if I could just finish up, I will do that.
You could. That would be fine. I was unaware that you were having that expectation.
Yeah, that's what I was told. So, okay. I want to ask you, why have our most intelligent people, our lawyers and our doctors, been censored and threatened to have their licenses taken away when they speak out about this? Why? We have to ask these questions. What is really going on? It is not about the virus. And I beg you, and I ask you, go do the searching. Go check out drsherry10penny.com. See what this is really about. Do you know 2,300 years ago, Arabs discovered that forcing people to cover their nose and mouth broke their will and their individuality, and it made them submissive. This from a mom. My son was given a timeout in front of his class last year for not wearing a mask. They tried very hard to break him. Other kids were encouraged to bully him into wearing this. This is not about a virus. I beg you to do your research. And I just want to say in my closing statement, I believe you are doing the best that you know how with the information you have. I really, in my heart, believe that, as do so many of us. But we, the people in the United States of America and here in Fergus Falls, do not consent to masking our kids. That is our constitutional right, and our Constitution clearly states that you have to get our consent in order to do this. So I thank you for your time today, and I just want to end this with saying we do not consent to masking our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. We'll call Dr. Morak to the podium, please, for comments, and then followed by Allie Houghton.
Sorry I'm late.
You didn't miss your slot. You're just perfect that way.
I was at a meeting. So I was taking care of sick people. I'm not really sure why I'm here. I've listened to a lot of people's discussions, including my partner. I don't know if she's still here, but it was a good discussion. She did a nice job. And so did Dr. Coleman. They call the surgeon in when there's trauma. All right? Look around. This community is in trauma. All right? I wore a mask for 38 years. I've been in a position for just that long. Everything I do, put a mask on. And I can tell you, when I put that N95 mask on and just stood there and operated, I got headaches. I'm used to wearing masks. I'm not even trying to do it when I'm running or playing in the gym or all the other stuff. These masks, you want to stop the virus? The example of it is like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. Good luck. Right? Yes, I sneeze. These masks are designed to blow shit behind me. That's all they're designed for. So I'm still not sure why I'm here. But I'm pissed. I take care of people. You know what this is about? This is about fear. This is about fear. I'm going to say it right now. This is about death. Everybody around here is scared that a kid may die in this community, and I'm terrified of it too. But I've been the guy there who pronounced the kids when they died. We all remember, I'm not going to say her name, an 18-month little girl who got hit by a car. Her mom was a nurse. Maggie's was her primary doctor, and we tried to keep her going as long as we could. But it was time, and I pronounced her. Because nobody else in the room could. Because, why? Because it's not about our science. You can find anything you want about science. You can go read anything. I can prove either side of this anytime. Looking anywhere I want, I can find the data that'll show what you think is right. You heard that from all the people out here. Social media, you heard it. Tom Rutherford did an excellent job. I'm throwing my social media thing just away. So what do I do when I have to make life and death decisions? Because effectively, that's what you're being asked to decide. Somewhere along in this part, you're going to have to decide, and your decision is going to make a life or death decision for some kid, or an adult, or like my partner said, her kid's uncle. Because that kid might have brought that to that uncle, and he got it, and he died. We all are going to die. It's a given. You cannot change it. Who do you believe? What is your foundation? This city has 17 Lutheran churches in its environment. You can't turn without seeing a church. Detroit, Michigan, you can turn without seeing a liquor store. I am blessed to be in this community, as are all of you. But now you were put in a position to make a decision. How do I make my decisions? With my experience of 35, 38 years, with what I've seen. You know what the real magic is of what surgery does? You take, and one of you might need my services tonight, because chances are you're all going to have an ulcer. And when you perforate your ulcer, you're going to call, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to give you information real quick. And I'm the expert. I'm going to tell you what you need. And 99% of the time, you're going to believe me. Mostly because they're hurting something. I've got no choice. But these people are hurting, and they have no choice. They're not sure where to look. They're looking to you to make a decision. How do I make those decisions? I pray. I pray on the way in. Any one of you shows up tonight, I'm praying on the way in. When I walk in, I pray for you. I pray with you. I pray for the team. I ask for guidance. Fixing your ulcer? Well, this is the part where you're supposed to know. I don't take any responsibility for that. I just put the two sides together. Okay? Just little strangers. Anybody do it. Monkeys can do it. Monkeys do it in Detroit. God heals you. He mends that together within 24 hours. Just walk tight and won't leak anymore. I take you through those places, but I get an apprentice. I'm a tool by the Maker. Look to your Maker. Do what you need to do for the people who have entrusted this to you. Put yourself in their shoes. I don't know how you put yourself in that woman whose child has to wear a mask, yet can't do her physical therapy or her speech therapy. I don't know what you can do that decision. You mandate this across the board, that's a tough place to go. I would suggest, and it's just a suggestion, you pray about it. Come real close to God and find out what He wants you to do. And then I would ask you to say, who does God put in charge of these kids? Their parents. Right? God gave each one of these kids to their child. Each one of these kids to their parents. And they speak for them. They may be wrong, they may be dumb, they may be perfect in their decisions, but it's still their responsibility. It's not yours. God gave it to them. Honor their wishes. Either side of the fence. And then let them decide if they want to go to school here or not. If they want to go to another school and pass up, so be it. If they want to stay here and not learn that, so be it. Take care of your people. Maybe that's why I'm here. God wins. And a lot of these people don't give your consent. They do not give your consent. It's against the Constitution. But that's another story. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
My name is Ali Calderon. I am a Lutheran pastor here in Fergus, but more importantly, I'm the parent of a first grader at Adams Elementary. I am only representing myself with my comments tonight. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for your work and the care given to COVID-19 policies and school safety. It is a challenging time to be a leader. I know and respect the gravity of the role to lead a community. As a faith leader, I work with students of all ages. During this pandemic, I have attempted to teach those students virtually at times. I cannot lie to you, it was difficult. It was difficult because the students couldn't build the same relationships they would if they were learning in person. It was difficult because not everyone's internet was fast enough to keep up. It was difficult because there were distractions at home that they would not have had if we had been in person. It was difficult because we learned that not everyone's definition of what is safe is the same. I've talked to parents who are on all sides of the issues before us tonight. Some have no interest in taking any safety precautions for many reasons, while others feel as if they are having to choose between keeping their children safe and sending them to school. In my opinion, public schools should always be a safe place for all students and staff. And for that reason, we entrust the school board and the school district to make certain decisions, including things like a dress code, which are enforced regularly. As a school district, I know that your number one priority is making decisions that are in the best interest of students and staff and learning. I am just as tired and done versus living in separate ways to compare the outcomes. That would be great. To the health and safety of those around us and in caring for our neighbors. Our personal freedoms as a public school district and for the children under our care. My son and others. He wears a mask to stay in person at school rather than how his decisions affect other people. Much more resilient than we give them credit for. They can survive and even thrive while wearing a mask during the school day. It's possible. We also know that in-person learning is a much better option. Intellectually, socially, and emotionally, mandate is better for our whole community. Families are depending on you to follow the science and protect the health and safety of our kids and community. Our kids deserve to go to school without worrying about getting sick and spreading the virus. We shouldn't ask our young kids and their parents to choose between going to school and staying healthy and safe. I'm asking you to continue to listen to the experts, follow the science, and not make masks optional. Especially, again, thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you for all you do as leaders in our schools.
Thank you, Pastor Calvary. And I've noticed a little bit of relaxing as we come to the end. We'll still try to adhere to the 3 minutes and to the lack of clapping and commenting. Finish up on a positive note.
Right. Thank you for hearing us all today. My name is Jessica Daniels. I do have a master's in cellular and molecular biology, and I've been a college biology instructor for 20 years. I also had to teach in the pandemic. I was hybrid and then fully online last year, so I do understand the challenges of educating during the pandemic. I'm also a graduate of Fergus Falls High School, and I have a senior in the district who spent last year in distance learning and lost many of those high school experiences. I'm here because I want our kids, our educators, and community to be safe, and because I believe in-person education is the best for most. So I wanted to talk about how masks work from a scientific perspective and help myself. There has been some misinformation on how masks work or don't. When we breathe or speak, we are releasing respiratory droplets from oxygen and carbon dioxide gases. They can easily freely pass in and out. Multiple studies have actually shown that multi-layered cloth masks block up to 80% of all respiratory droplets and about 50 to 70% of those very fine, small particles. By blocking those droplets, we're decreasing the amount of virus released into the air, and so we're making it harder to reach that infectious dose. If we don't reach that infectious dose, we're not going to become infected. All right, so individuals that, there's also about 50% protection of filtering for those that are actually wearing the mask. So individuals that wear a mask do have some filtration protection, but they're still putting others at risk if those in the So somebody's freedom to not wear a mask is actually putting other people's children and families at risk. Personal freedom ends when it harms others. I support a full mask mandate of pre-K all the way through 12 students. I want to keep our kids, families, and community.
Do we have Dr. Naomi Schmidt available to take the podium? Welcome. And we'll look for Jesse Tomford to be prepared for next slide.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to offer a few comments as both Chief Medical Officer at Lake Region Healthcare and as a parent of young school-aged children. First and foremost, I want to emphasize that we're all here for the same reason. We care about our kids and what we want what's best for them. We know that in-person learning is what's best, and at school, we're all working towards keeping them healthy and in school. I want us to all keep this in mind as we have in common as we look at this topic. A few points I'd like to address. First, the idea that the virus, as it is dangerous to the majority of the population. While most people do recover from it without hospitalization or death, the point of concern about it is that how we act as individuals has something to do with how likely we are to the vulnerable to catch it. Over the last few months, as the Delta variant has COVID-19 continues to circulate, and many of us in healthcare have seen people we know and care about become very ill or die. Secondly, the idea that the virus isn't dangerous to younger people. The amount of pediatric in the region has seen several our children who have been ill enough to be transferred to other hospitals. Thirdly, we have seen workforce impacts. As a healthcare organization, we have areas of workforce shortages just like schools or your favorite restaurants. When staff members have children who have to be at work due to either their children's illnesses or exposures, it causes difficulty in making sure that our healthcare measures protect the people from becoming infected from COVID-19. While wearing a mask can be uncomfortable, it's one of the best ways we have to slow down the spread of COVID and other sicknesses that are on the rise right now, like RSV and influenza. As you've heard it say before, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think that we have a great village of passionate and caring people in this community. Imagine if all of us in the village decided to do what we can to slow the spread of this virus, because it's the right thing to do as taking part of care for each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Schmidt. I appreciate your comments. Jesse Tomford.
Hi there, I'm Jesse Tomford. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I'm a graduate of an otter from 1995, and my wife and I, 15 years, have spent most of our lives here in Fergus Falls. I know most people here are electrical engineer, they probably think, uh-oh, more technical speak and reasons for science. So don't worry, I won't address anything technical tonight. I've heard so much intelligence, wisdom, and discernment here already, I just end up looking foolish anyway. So, since this is a school board meeting and schools focus on teaching and learning, I'd like to do the one thing that has always helped me learn, ask questions. So if you'll indulge me, I also want to mention I do really appreciate people who serve on a school board and who take the time and effort away from their families and interests to show love to others by making hard decisions, and decisions that are often difficult for many to accept. So thank you for serving us. To start, it might be helpful to establish common ground with some points most everyone can agree upon. No one likes this virus and the way it's being used to divide us. This is the most common thing I hear from people of all perspectives. This is a community of diverse views, but most everyone around here loves their neighbor and wants to live peaceably as much as it is up to them. No one likes others forcing them to parent a certain way or usurping their authority with their own child. Parents are especially sensitive to anyone who has charge over their children when they can't be there. Now, there are a lot of seemingly no-win situations that everyone seems to be facing in some form related to COVID. I think we all recognize that. We also recognize there's many employers who are requiring people to wear masks, their employees who visit. So my question really is, what are people doing when given the choice? How many people here tonight wear masks when they're out in public and buildings? And how many people here tonight require their children or grandchildren to wear masks when they're out in public and buildings? And how many people do you see wearing masks out in public and buildings? How many little children do you see wearing masks out in public and buildings? You know, we can sit here and review statistics, studies ad nauseum, but just being aware of what is going on around Fergus Falls provides insight into what our neighbors are really thinking. I mean, just going and shopping, I see that that's 5%. That was a good guess, and I haven't seen any children lately. So some big questions to think about as we try to make decisions, and I know this is not going to be easy for many of you. Maybe it is, I don't know, it wouldn't be easy for me. But have people in the last 19 months, have they settled into their beliefs on masking? Are there more facts, figures, those things? Maybe we can change it, but everybody has to do their own research. So what brings a diverse community together? Well, forcing little children to wear masks bring people together. Why would we tell a little child they must wear a mask, but then we won't enforce that requirement in school if a parent is insistent that they don't wear a mask? Does this teach children to trust and respect their teachers and adults? How will our little ones feel if they're singled out as the only group required to wear a mask? Is the cost of damaging their little heart worth whatever gains we may think we could make against the virus? Anyway, thanks for listening. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Stender. And our final speaker, sorry, Mr. Comfort. Wow, I jumped in. I did say earlier with math board report too, so I'm sorry. All right. And so, Mr. Stender.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks for opening this up. I appreciate it so much. I know a lot of people wondering what in the world I'm doing here. We have a lot of kids. And I think our kids are in almost every opportunity for education in Fergus Falls. So it's kind of cool. So in that, I don't have a lot of science knowledge. I'm guessing that a lot of you, when you joined the board, didn't join it to say, I'm excited to tell people what to do with their health, right? You didn't sign up and say, I want to tell people that we should wear masks. So my question is, why are we doing it then? Because school primarily is a mediating institution. And right now we have a ton of, I would say, distrust in mediating institutions. So mediating institutions are institutions that exist to bridge a gap or provide kind of a bridge for somebody to move from dependence to independence, right? School's designed to be a mediating institution. I should have picked a better word, shouldn't I? Schools are designed for that. Media is designed for that. Newspapers are designed to help us move from a place of dependence to independence, to be able to think on our own. Right now, what we have happening inside of our culture is a lack of trust in mediating institutions. That's what we're seeing here probably in our world, but I would say what's incredible for me to watch tonight, I hope you guys feel the same way, is that a lot of these people that are coming up that have their own ideas, their own opinions, went to Fergus Falls High. And they developed an understanding of independent thinking by coming to Fergus Falls High. And so I would say as we look at this, rather than have these people who are trusting their kids into your employ, right? You're providing a mediating institution. I don't think we should put them in a place where now they distrust our local educating body, because you're not here to be a hospital. A hospital does care about all of the things. They do all the mitigations. A hospital is also probably going to tell me not to have pizza and go out tonight and have whatever dessert I want to have, right? But there's freedoms that we have, and there's mediating institutions that have taught me to think on my own and to process on my own. And I think what's happening here tonight is in danger, probably one of the biggest challenges that's going to come out of COVID. And that's a lack of trust. And for all of these people to place our kids into your school, you don't have to do this. There's no other school that I know of that's saying, hey, from pre-K to 6th grade, we're going to mask up. No other school that I know of. So I don't understand why we would put these people that are now trusting their kids into your employ to now step into this and have them distrust the mediating institution that prepared them to think on their own. So I would just ask you to reconsider this. You don't need to do this. We're managing this at home. I've got however many kids, I can't even count. They've all been sick. We manage that. Parents have that responsibility because they're our kids. We want you to help us go from dependence to independence, but don't make us distrust you in this decision. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stender. And then our final speaker this evening will be Brooke McConnell.
Well, I have this speech here, and as I'm sitting here, I was rewriting it like 6 times, so it's a whole responsibility thing. I totally agree with that. Like, just being up to parent choice and freedom to choose, no matter which side you're on. You know, I was able to go into a lot of the schools before last Monday. I volunteered for JAWS at Adams. I have a special needs son at Cleveland, and so I spent time there. And it was fascinating to see what people did choose. And we did get that right, and that ability, and people were masking, and people weren't, and I think it was going really well. And I mean, a lot of the people, we don't believe what some of the science is. I don't know what you guys are going to do. I mean, we have doctors in this room that come up here and give you the exact opposite views. I mean, we know that. We have people in our community that are on different sides. So we have science that backs both ways. So I have no idea what I would do if I was you. I really don't. So the only thing I think is that we have to have freedom, like we've had. And I think that was a great choice to start the school year with. You know, the other thing I love is that, I am against the masks, but I have so many friends who are on the other side, and I love that I know you all. I love that we can be a community. And I totally did a Tom Roofer statement of getting off of social media. I came on social media because of this, because I wanted to kind of see where everybody was at with this. But I have been off since December, and my life has been so much better. So I encourage it for everybody to get off of social media. That's just my own personal opinion on that. But my husband and I have 5 kids in the school district, and we are conservative Christians, and we really see things that are happening in our society and in our nation, and know that there are some concerns. But we have a lot of friends who have pulled their kids from the school district, and our desire is never to do that. Our desire is to stay here. We want to be amongst people who disagree with us. I want my children to grow up, know what they believe, and to live in civility with people they disagree with. And so I think the only way we can do that is by giving people the freedom to choose. So I guess to end, the only thing, I've been getting messages as the meeting's gone, and with your speech, Mr. Drake, and there's just still a lot of questions out there. And I think with everything that has been decided and as things have gone, we don't know what we're supposed to do. I mean, we feel like we've just talked at you, and we don't know what we're going to get back. And I know I've heard that we should have representatives that should come together and voice their opinions. But we want a voice. We want to be able to choose. We want to be able to talk with you. And so I think we want to hear from you what impact this had or didn't have. And so I guess I'll leave that in your position. I know this isn't the back and forth, but we do want to hear from you after this, and that's it. So, thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. McCon. So that concludes our listening session for tonight, and I do appreciate...
Is there any chance to elementary teachers could say something?
No, we're going to adhere to our protocol, just to be fair to everyone. So I know I speak for the entirety of the board when I say having this kind of public engagement in how our school is run is refreshing and invigorating. We've heard a variety of perspectives tonight, and I do appreciate that we have accomplished this with respect and been able to appreciate other people's points of view. So that will conclude our listening session tonight, and thank you all for your attendance and your participation.